And then the Alliance for Democracy that I work with, working with the Environmental Justice Coalition for Water, produced this water tabloid in which we mapped the water justice struggles across the state. And we produced 20,000 of these, and really had some impact on beginning a discussion about what to do in terms of providing safe, affordable drinking water for these communities. And then there began to be a discussion about what not only could the communities do, but what could various organizations working with these communities try to accomplish. And for a while, this discussion of, sort of was diffuse, but then in the fall of 2008, when the state was considering, you may remember the huge bond proposal that was before the people of California, the $11 billion bond, which was in the end, with all the interest, was going to be $21 billion, that was to fix the entire California sort of plumbing system and resolve California water issues for all time, but in fact was based on more dams, more storage, more surface infrastructure, and was going to have a huge impact on the health of the Delta and fish and salmon, and particularly the tribes of California were brought into this conversation. Of course, they've been involved for a long time, but a coalition was gradually coming together that represented many more diverse communities looking at the problem of state water. And so in the fall of 2008, we created something called a California Water Summit. And this was a group of representatives from legislative offices of the state, businesses, water agencies, environmental groups, fish groups, angling groups, faith-based groups, tribes, and environmental justice groups from around the state. And we began to hold meetings, out of which came 10 water principles that was unanimously adopted. 3 principal elements are decision-making based on a set of values that include sustainability and equity for a healthy California instead of a system based on special interests. 2, reform of existing agencies, exercise existing authority before creating new agencies and authority. So that really was an attempt to get the agencies to sort of do the business of what they're supposed to do for the people and not for the special interests. That's, of course, a complicated dynamic. And 3 was to create a financing plan for the California, sort of water system and infrastructure that was a sustainable financing plan and wasn't based on these huge bond measures, which really, encumber the state for a long period of time. The $11 billion bond, as I mentioned, is going to end up with the interest payments to be $21 billion. And of course, the payment of the bonds comes before any of the other aspects of the state budget are met, because the bond obligations to all the bondholders, wherever they are, using income, the interest on the bonds they're holding comes first. So out of this water summit came documents on environmental justice, water governance, groundwater management, regional self-sufficiency, addressing the issue of fish declines and salmon in particular, and to develop a way of taking forward public education around the issue of water, and particularly then a unanimous decision of the Water Summit to introduce for the 2008-2009 legislature a bill on the human right to water. This bill will declare that it's an established policy of the state that every human being has a right to clean, affordable, accessible water for human consumption, cooking, and sanitary purposes that is adequate for the health and well-being of the individual and family. This bill would have required all relevant state agencies, including the Department of Water Resources, the State Water Resources Control Board, and the State Department of Public Health, to employ all reasonable means to implement this state policy. So after much work, after much work, visiting offices, lobbying, we got the bill through both houses of the state legislature, and we got it to Schwarzenegger's desk, and Schwarzenegger vetoed it. And he vetoed it I'm not going to read the whole thing, but anyway, he says, I wholeheartedly support the underlying premise of this bill. We should be doing everything we can to ensure that our communities have access to clean, affordable water for our citizens. But the language of this bill would undoubtedly lead to potentially costly and constant litigation. This moves our limited state resources away from the day-to-day operations of achieving our clean water goals and puts them in the courtroom.